Told you that modern-day Iran, known as Persia in biblical times, plays a crucial role in the Bible's grand narrative of prophecy and world events. When people think of the Bible, they often focus on Israel, Egypt, and Babylon. But what if I said that Persia wasn't just another empire, but a nation named in prophecy to shape the destiny of God's chosen people? Iran's biblical history is more fascinating than you might think. From Noah's lineage to Cyrus the Great's reign, Iran's story is intertwined with key biblical events. The most surprising revelation is that God used Persia, a nation of pagan kings, to deliver Israel, rebuild the temple, and fulfill ancient prophecies. In this video, we'll uncover how the Bible reveals the origins of the Iranian people, their rise to power, and their significant role in shaping both the Old Testament and prophetic visions of the future. Get ready. What you're about to learn will change your perspective on Iran, not just as a modern nation, but as a key player in God's plan for the world. To trace Iran's biblical roots, we must go back to Noah's story. After the flood, Noah's sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth, became the ancestors of all nations. According to Genesis 10, one of Japheth's sons was Madai, the ancestor of the Medes, who would later join forces with the Persians to form the Medo-Persian Empire, one of history's greatest empires. Madai's descendants, the Medes, settled in what is now Iran. Later, the Persians emerged from the same region, sharing a common Iranian ancestry. Thus, the Bible connects the Iranians to Japheth through Madai, placing them in the biblical narrative right after the flood. This connection links the Iranian people to one of the Bible's oldest genealogies and sets the stage for their significant role in Israel's history. Fast forward several centuries, and Persia rises to prominence in the Bible. The Medes and Persians formed an alliance under Cyrus the Great, who founded the Achaemenid Empire. At its peak, this empire spanned from the Indus River to North Africa, encompassing regions like Israel, Babylon, and Egypt. Persia's significance, however, lies not in its military power, but in how God used it to fulfill his promises to Israel. In 586 BC, the Babylonian Empire, under Nebuchadnezzar, destroyed Jerusalem and took the Israelites into exile for 70 years, as Jeremiah prophesied. Then Cyrus the Great, the Persian king, conquered Babylon in 539 BC, changing everything. The book of Ezra begins with Cyrus's decree allowing the Israelites to return and rebuild the temple in Jerusalem. In Ezra 1 verses 1-4, Cyrus declares, "The Lord, the God of heaven, has given me all the kingdoms of the earth and has appointed me to build a temple for him at Jerusalem in Judah." Cyrus, a pagan king, had been named by Isaiah over a century before as the one who would restore Israel, Isaiah 44 verse 28, and Isaiah 45 verse 1. In one of the most astounding moments in biblical history, Persia, a nation outside God's covenant, became the instrument of Israel's redemption. This event was a turning point, marking Persia's central role in God's divine plan. One of Persia's most remarkable legacies is Cyrus the Great's role. Isaiah 44 verse 28 mentions him by name 150 years before his birth, calling him God's shepherd who would carry out his purposes. In Isaiah 45 verse 1, Cyrus is even referred to as God's anointed, a title usually reserved for Israel's kings. How could a foreign king be called God's anointed? The answer lies in God's sovereignty and his ability to use anyone, even outsiders, to accomplish his will. Cyrus's decree to allow the Jews to return and rebuild the temple wasn't just a political act. It fulfilled prophecy. Jeremiah had foretold that the Babylonian exile would last 70 years. Jeremiah 25 verses 11 to 12, and Jeremiah 29 verse 10. And Cyrus's rise marked the end of that period. The rebuilding of the temple, led by Zerubbabel with Cyrus's blessing, was a key moment in Israel's restoration. God used Persia not only to defeat Babylon, but to help restore Israel as a nation. This demonstrated that God's plan is far greater than any empire, and He can use even the most unlikely figures to bring about His purposes. Persia's biblical role didn't end with Cyrus and the temple's rebuilding. The Book of Esther gives another example of how God used Persia to protect His people. During King Xerxes' reign, Ahasuerus in the Bible, Haman, a Persian official, plotted to exterminate the Jews. However, through God's providence, a young Jewish woman named Esther became Persia's queen. Encouraged by her uncle Mordecai, Esther courageously revealed her Jewish identity and pleaded with the king to save her people. Esther 4 verse 14 records Mordecai's famous words to her, "Who knows but that you have come to your royal position for such a time as this?" Esther's brave intervention led to Haman's execution and a new decree allowing the Jews to defend themselves. This story, celebrated annually during Purim, shows how God used Persia and Esther to deliver the Jews from annihilation. Persia, once again, played an active role in ensuring Israel's survival, confirming that even foreign empires were part of God's plan for His people. Persia is not only significant in biblical history, but also in prophetic visions about the future. The book of Daniel presents Persia as a key player in God's prophetic timeline. In Daniel 2, King Nebuchadnezzar's dream of a statue represents various world empires, with the silver chest and arms symbolizing the Medo-Persian Empire. In Daniel 7, the second beast, a bear, represents Persia, emphasizing its dual nature, Medes and Persians. In Daniel 8, Persia is symbolized by a ram with two horns, Medes and Persians. Though Persia would eventually fall to Greece under Alexander the Great, these visions place Persia at the center of God's divine plan for world history. Persia's reign facilitated Israel's restoration, fulfilling prophecies from Isaiah, Jeremiah, and Ezekiel. Although Persia fell to Alexander, its legacy endured into New Testament times. By Jesus' birth, Persia had been replaced by the Roman Empire, but its cultural and administrative influence remained strong. A mysterious connection to Persia in the New Testament appears in the story of the Magi. Scholars believe these wise men were from Persia or a nearby region influenced by Persian culture. Likely scholars of the stars and ancient texts, the Magi may have known Jewish prophecies about the Messiah. Guided by a star, they visited Jesus, offering gifts of gold, frankincense, and myrrh, recognizing him as king. This act of homage by the Magi highlights Persia's ongoing connection to the Bible, even extending to the birth of the Savior. In addition to the remarkable roles of Cyrus the Great and Queen Esther, another powerful connection between Persia and the Bible comes through the story of Nehemiah and King Artaxerxes. This story further highlights how Persia was divinely used to accomplish God's purposes for Israel. Nehemiah was a Jewish cupbearer serving in the court of Artaxerxes, the Persian king. His position, one of great trust and influence, allowed him direct access to the king. Despite his prestigious role, Nehemiah's heart was burdened by the news that Jerusalem, the city of his ancestors, lay in ruins with its walls broken down after years of neglect and invasion. In the book of Nehemiah, we learn that upon hearing the condition of Jerusalem, Nehemiah wept, fasted, and prayed to God. seeking guidance. His desire was to return to Jerusalem and lead an effort to rebuild the city walls, restoring the safety and dignity of his people. However, this was no small request. Nehemiah would need the favor and permission of the king, as well as resources to undertake such a significant project. One day, as Nehemiah served King Artaxerxes, the king noticed Nehemiah's sadness and inquired about it. With a prayer in his heart, Nehemiah explained his distress over the state of Jerusalem. Moved by Nehemiah's concern, King Artaxerxes granted him permission to return to Jerusalem to oversee the reconstruction of the city walls. But the king's support did not stop there. He also provided letters of protection for Nehemiah's journey and supplies from the royal forest for the building materials. Nehemiah 2 verses 7-8. This extraordinary act of favor from Artaxerxes shows, once again, how God worked through the Persian rulers to fulfill his purposes for Israel. Though Artaxerxes was not part of God's covenant people, he played a pivotal role in the restoration of Jerusalem, ensuring that Nehemiah had everything he needed to accomplish the task. Nehemiah's leadership in rebuilding Jerusalem's walls is a profound example of faith, perseverance, and God's providence. Despite opposition from surrounding enemies, Nehemiah successfully led the people in completing the wall in just 52 days. Nehemiah 6 verse 15. This miraculous feat not only secured the city but also strengthened the faith and resolve of the Jewish people. The partnership between Nehemiah and Artaxerxes demonstrates how God's hand was at work, even in the courts of foreign kings, using them to fulfill his promises. Persia, under Artaxerxes, once again became an instrument in the preservation and restoration of Israel. This story, like that of Cyrus and Esther, underscores a central theme in the Bible. God can use anyone, regardless of their background or beliefs, to accomplish his divine will. Persia's legacy in the Bible, through figures like Artaxerxes, Cyrus, and Xerxes, shows how this nation played a critical role in shaping the destiny of God's people and in the fulfillment of biblical prophecy. If you found this video helpful, be sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe for more biblical teachings. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Until next time, God bless.